On this episode of This Week in Space, it's our holiday special. What's it like to celebrate Christmas in orbit? What was your favorite space toy? Will Tariq ever look older than 14? Join me, producer Anthony, the amazing Ant Pruitt, and little Tariq for a holiday romp next on This Week in Space.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiS.
This is This Week in Space, episode number 141, recorded on December 20th, 2024. The TWiS Holiday Special 2024, Tiny Tariq's Christmas Turkey.
"'Twas the week before Christmas, and all through the Warwick, not a creature was stirring. Not even little Tariq. He slept like an angel, in a body so jolly as the fire was crackling, like his Spacetron plays folly. He had warm thoughts of TWiS episodes past, and he stirred in his slumbers, but even nightmares don't last. So join us, my friends, for a tale so whimsical that you won't want to leave, not even for a crimsicle. 'Twas the week before Christmas."
Hello and happy holidays, everybody, and welcome to This Week in Space, the holiday special edition. Yay! Wait a minute.
You said my YouTube channel is a folly, Rod. I heard that in there.
I'm Rod Pyle, editor-in-chief of Van Aster Magazine, and I'm joined, as always, by the jolly, tiny Tim Tariq, editor-in-chief at space.com.
Oh, my
Hello,
God.
my friend.
You said body so jolly is what you said. I'm crying.
It's all in the writing. And we're joined today by the amazing Anthony Nielsen and our founding producer and blast from the past, the astonishing Ant Pruitt. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you for coming in. I know that Anthony lives to be on camera, so we're very glad that we pulled him in here today. Yeah, look at him dip out. And
Pressing
Ant,
buttons.
we've missed you.
Hey, I've missed you too, but I've been listening to the show pretty regularly, so I can keep up with some of the stuff y'all have had going on and continue to shake my head at all of this.
I was going to say,
stuff.
If you're listening to the show, you must have an astonishing amount of time on your hands. Now, before I forget, please don't forget to do us a holiday solid. That didn't sound quite right. And make sure to like, subscribe, and all the other cool podcast things, because we need your love. And we live and die by your attention. So we're counting on you. And now, our gift to you, a space joke from Brian Tanner.
Brian!
Are we ready?
I'm ready.
Astronomers recently discovered a giant object in space that resembles a turkey. They're calling it a gobble-year cluster.
I love space puns.
Okay, so thank you, Brian. Here's mine. Hey, Tariq.
Yes, Rod.
How did Santa beat China to the moon?
I don't know. How did he beat China to the moon?
He slayed the competition. Oh, it's a spelling joke. All right, now I hear that some people want to set fire to the nearest Christmas tree when they hear our jokes, but you can help by sending your best work or most different space joke, like mine apparently, to us at TWiS@twit.tv. All right, we need to go to some headlines, but before we do, I have a housekeeping moment here, because we got kind of an interesting inquiry from Michael Clary.
Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Who said, how many Apollo moonships could you send to the moon on a starship?
Oh, yeah. You did a bunch of math for this one, didn't you?
Well, as much as I'm capable. We've had this conversation before, haven't we? Why didn't Rod stay in astronomy? All right. So here's a fairly easy challenge, and I'm sure that somebody out there, because we have a few rivet counters in the cosmos, will be able to tell me where I slipped up here. But the Apollo 11 command module alone was 11 feet tall without the escape tower, and that's gone by the time they reach orbit. Although if it's in a starship, it wouldn't be. But let's just say they're not going to have an escape tower because it would do them no good inside a starship cargo hold. So a starship's cargo hold being 56 feet tall, it would hold just over 5 command modules and a few bananas if they were stacked vertically. Now, that's just a single stack, though. If you dumped a bunch in there, I'm sure somebody who knew how to do calculus could tell me the total number, but heavens to Betsy, not me anymore. Okay.
Like volume, you mean? Like
resetting here. Yeah. Because I sort of envision him dumping him in like a salt shaker instead of actually, organizing them properly. If you had the command module and the service module, its propulsive and power unit, you could barely fit two of them stacked atop each other inside. And since the command module, service module stack had a diameter of about 12 feet, and Starship's cargo bay has a diameter of 26, I think
that's a tight fit.
3 in there. Maybe 6. But if you add the lunar module, which is what it takes to transit and land on the moon, so Apollo 11 on, Apollo 8 just had the command and service module. The lunar module is 18 feet high and 14 feet in diameter with its legs folded. You could stack the whole command module, service module, lunar module stack in there. Ant's just shaking his head inside. And with some fiddling, because we all know Elon can fudge things on Starship, maybe 3 of those. And since the command module, service module, lunar module stack would go to the moon all on its own and return, Starship would only need to carry them to low Earth orbit or thereabouts. And the weight of that stack, the mass wet fueled, is about 97,000 pounds. Starship's supposed payload capacity is between 220,000 to 330,000, depending on whether it's expendable or returning. So it could potentially carry those 3 fully fueled spacecraft stacks that would get 9 people to the moon and back. However, we still have to get them out of Earth orbit and send them to the moon, which is what the remaining fuel in the S4B stage used to be from the Saturn V. Listen to me. So you could probably use either a little solid...
Oh, I'm listening.
Solid rocket kick motor, or... so the S4B had 220,000 pounds of thrust and burned for about 5 minutes to get them out of the Earth orbit on the way to the moon. But because a single Raptor engine on Starship has about 500,000 pounds of thrust, you could probably burn that for a minute or two, or burn 3 of them for just a little blip. So anyway, this is very inexact, but I was trying to give you the best answer I can, Michael. In any case, somebody, Michael, looking at you, should call NASA and tell them to dust off the remaining capsules and lunar modules and service modules, which are sitting in museums. And as we've seen from a number of movies, what was that one, Moonfall?
Moonfall.
Where you take a space shuttle out of the museum and just kind of dust it off and clean the window, and the next thing you know, you're launching. We could take all these things and send them off the moon, and think of the money we'd save.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Of course, you did need to have the moon falling so that it changes gravity so that you can get off the ground with only 2 main engines or something like that.
Yeah, it has to be full of nano bumblebees, but whatever. What a horrible movie. Okay, so there we go. Let us get going on some headlines, because as long as we've got Ant in torture mode here, we might as well continue with it, because he's sitting there thinking,
headline.
I watch football during this.
I'm thinking I'm so grateful for my beer.
Yeah, but you only
one
have
that thought
one.
I had.
All right. So Tariq, why don't you give us your first one, then I'll roll.
Yeah. So it is the season, of course.
To cook your spacecraft.
Well, that's right. Where you're having lots of holiday roasts, and NASA's going to do it with the Parker Solar Probe. And for the first time ever, we're about to get our get up close and personal with the sun on Christmas Eve. So just when everyone's sitting down for dinner, we usually have tamales at my house, actually. NASA's going to fly by, making its closest approach with the Parker Solar Probe. Ars Technica has this really good story about how we're going to fly, quote unquote, inside the sun for the first time. And some backgrounder: the Parker Solar Probe is NASA's most ambitious and intrepid mission to the sun ever. It's been slowly getting closer and closer and closer to the sun with a series of flybys. It flew by Venus a couple times, I think, etc., so that it can touch basically like the surface, that photosphere, kind of gaseous, those layers, because it's not like a rock or whatever, the sun. So that we can understand like what makes it tick. And on December 24th, I think it's like at 6 in the morning. It's really early Eastern time. It's going to fly within 6.1 million kilometers. So that's 3.8 million miles. Remember, we're like, 90 93 million miles away from the sun on the Earth. So very, very close by. And it's going to withstand temperatures of up to like 2,500 degrees, which is crazy. And the goal is to basically understand how this sun has been changing over time, get this up close, like how its weather is behaving, how everything in terms of like the heat dynamics are all working, so we can understand how these stars work and hopefully make sure they don't fry us all with solar storms. And it's just really amazing. It has this huge thick plate on the front as like a heat shield to hopefully it will survive. In fact, as you and I are recording this, Rod and Anthony, they are getting their last signal from Parker Solar Probe until it flips around the other side. So it's going to go dark, for at least signal-wise, for the next like week or so until December 27th, really. And that's when they're going to find out one way or another if the spacecraft survived like this super close flyby of the sun. So very exciting stuff. Of course, we're not going to know one way or another for another week until after Christmas. So maybe we'll have a nice belated Christmas present. I just dropped my mouse on the floor. I hope you didn't hear that. So
I swear, the chair break or the mouse drop is.
I fixed the chair.
You remembered the chair.
I fixed it. I bought extra parts and I put a new bottom on it, and it doesn't even wibble wobble anymore. So,
And Ant, you wouldn't believe the amount of drama with it. We're going back and forth. He's saying, I don't know where to get the parts, and if I get them, well, what do I do? And how do I? And I said, just get the new air piston for it. They sell that. No, it's not that. It's a thing, and all that. And I said, okay. Bolt some wooden blocks to the foot struts. It'll be fine.
We had that for a while. Yeah.
Oh, I can't do that. All right, let's roll to a break before I say something to embarrass
I
us
had a
both.
question about this.
Oh,
Can I
yes?
ask questions about this?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, jeez. So, you said it's going to flip around. Is that what's the point of it flipping around?
Oh, so I mean when it comes around the other side, basically when it finishes the flyby, it's going. It's so close to the sun and it's such a harsh environment that it's not going to be able to get the signals out because it's facing. It's like all hunkered down basically for this flyby. It has like a small instrument package, about 110 pounds of instruments on board that it's going to be recording all of the information and stuff of the sun. But today, it's
I think that's a little insulting.
What?
Telling Parker that it has a small package. I just don't think that's very
saying. It's a huge spacecraft, multi-billion-dollar spacecraft.
Okay.
We can only get these bits there. So
I'm curious to see how they tested it, if it's rated to be able to withstand that much heat.
Great big blowtorch. Well, and what's interesting is, so the shield is, I don't know, it's a combination of graphite and carbon composites, a bunch of other stuff, right, Tariq?
Yeah.
But it's, it can forestall heat from that direction. But if I recall, the photosphere itself is very hot. It's not just, what's coming to the surface of the sun with illumination. It's actually the photosphere itself. So the whole thing has to be somewhat armored.
Right.
What temperature is it exposed to at its peak,
well,
do you know?
Well, they said 25 up to 2,500 degrees is what they said. And
That's hot.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty hot. It's like re-entry. They basically put it inside with like a jet engine thing, like a supercharged rocket engine, and then just turned it on and said, "All right, did we cook it? No. All right, it's fine. All right, good for the sun."
So roll that thing out with these little smoking tendrils coming off of it. Oh, let's go back. Okay,
but now it is going fast though. It's going to be going like 1% the speed of light because of the acceleration, like 430,000 miles an hour. That's really, really fast. So 1/6 of 1%.
Can I go to a break now and pay some bills?
Please and thank you.
Ant had questions. I just do my best. So
Yeah, but we can't earn your big fat paycheck if we don't pay some bills. Oh wait, you don't get one. Okay, we'll be right back. We'll be right back. Stand by. Christmas and Hanukkah and so forth in space.
Yeah.
You have a tale for us.
I just wanted to remind everybody that that the holidays are coming, and I guess for the first time, it's going to be Christmas and Hanukkah on the same day, which is pretty exciting. Which means that the astronauts in space are going to be having a big, nice holiday too. And I just thought this was a nice time to remind everyone that Christmas has been celebrated, the holidays have been celebrated in space for like 50, almost 50 years now, right? With the or more, no, almost 60 years. Yeah, since the Genesis reading from Apollo 8.
Yeah, I was going to say
Apollo 8
Apollo 8 was the first public demonstration.
The first public one. Yeah,
correct?
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah, yeah.
And since then you had astronauts build like Christmas trees out of food cans on it, and then you've had
Sounds like my childhood.
other astronauts celebrate Hanukkah in space too, and we've got 7 people on the International Space Station right now from Russia and the United States, among others. So I just want everyone to think about, if you're celebrating the holidays, or if you do celebrate at all, that you are not alone. There are people up in space doing the same exact thing. You can find all about it at NASA, although it's really strange because even last year's big holiday overview that has all of these little bits and blurbs and photos of how they all have, Santa hats on the space station and stockings and stuff like that. All of the NASA pages are 404ing, which is weird. So I had to go back to the Wayback Machine, which is what you see Anthony scrolling through if you're watching the video there. But astronauts who celebrate Christmas do get 2 Christmases in space because they celebrate, Christmas on December 25th. Then they celebrate Russian Orthodox Christmas with their Russian crewmates too. So they get like a double holiday there.
But one involves alcohol potentially.
Well,
I wonder what the communication is like for the families there in space back to Earth on the holidays. Is there anything
You mean for the astronauts talking to their families?
That's a really good question. And, they have quote unquote internet protocol phones, which is just like Skype, as I understand it. Right. So they can actually call whenever they like, if they have free time and are able to. And then sometimes they'll catch people. It's why you hear astronauts sometimes just call ham radio operators for fun because they've got free time and they're able to do that. But there are also scheduled check-ins with family that they have time where they know they can just call their family whenever they like. They've got their own computer in their sleeping quarters too, that they can use to do email and all of that. And so they do a lot of events that way. And it hasn't always been that way, obviously. They haven't had these internet protocol phones, like the videos and whatnot, connections over the past. And until like the constant like TWiS type communication didn't have direct contact all the time at all. Now it's just unbroken and it's taken for granted over time. So they do need to make sure that they schedule that. And then they get cargo, like we just had a recent cargo mission there to the space station. They get presents and stuff in those too. Special foods.
Lightweight presents, yeah. So I do remember back around 2006, I think, I was working on an Apollo book, and in a similar way, all the NASA websites went dark, even historical ones, which is weird because it's not like there's a national security issue there. But apparently they had shut them down to deal with security issues, which I don't understand because the stuff had been public for 50 years. Specifically, I was looking up stuff on the Saturn V moon rocket. So I poked around, and the only place I could find it was on a Chinese server, which is perhaps why they were trying to shut it down and protect it. I mean, cow's kind of out of the barn 50, 60 years later, but it was interesting. All right. I think we could squeeze in one more.
Yeah.
This is so depressing.
I know.
Let's let NASA go out of business for a week because we want them to get to the moon first, but not if it costs any money.
Now, this is like just a heads up to like the avid space fan is that right now in the United States, there's a whole big political like debacle going on about should we fund the government or not, and there is a government shutdown looming as we're recording this, which means that if the Congress doesn't set a budget or agree on a bill, then the government is going to go into either a full or a partial shutdown, most likely a partial one, over the weekend. And the reason I bring it up is because NASA obviously is part of the government, and NASA oversees all the space things, and of course the FAA oversees a lot of the commercial space things. And so if you were hoping, if this happens, and you were hoping for unfettered great access from NASA for this flyby, for example, that we were talking about earlier with Parker Solar Probe, just be aware that you won't hear anything from like the public affairs team at all from NASA. You won't see anything from, from official space station sources, etc., because they're not allowed to work during that period. Usually, there's like a little blurb or a message. We've got a link to the NASA shutdown page, and I just wanted this to let our readers or listeners know, because maybe you can call your congressperson and say, hey, it's the holidays, learn to work together or something, so that we can all breathe a little easier. if they go into a shutdown, it means the folks at NASA don't get paid until it gets done. You know, the astronauts in space, the people that make these missions work, the people that make everything else work.
Are going to get paid. Those decision makers are going to still make their money.
There is that.
They give a crap.
There is that, and the people that already that do work and on like mission critical things. The International Space Station, for example, mission critical lives at stake. It means that those people have to go to work and they just won't get paid, but they are expected to go to work. You know, that kind of a thing.
So can I just weigh in here as a freelancer and add, I don't know how you feel about this because I know you're freelancing as well, but you know, when I hear people, so some of the people I knew at JPL were making well into six figures, like $300,000 a year. And I'd hear the talk about, oh my God, I'm going to have to go a week without pay. And I get it. You have a job, you should get paid, all that kind of stuff. But just from my perspective, subjectively, going from assignment to assignment, there's no contribution matching for Social Security. I mean, freelancing basically sucks, except that it gives you time-wise, it gives you a better lifestyle in some ways. But when you're on it 24/7, and it's a beast. So I guess, I don't know how another way to put it. I have a certain lack of sympathy for people that will not do that one extra shift at work because they might get paid a week later. I mean, when I was working for Disney, which I did for years, I was lucky if I got an invoice paid in 3 months. And they say, yeah, boy, we're hustling on it. It's like, guys, it's been a really long time. Give me a break here. So anyway, this is all kind of a non sequitur, and I apologize if it seems off.
I'm just saying it's the government. They're supposed to work, Rod. They work for us, right? So,
well,
and we see how that's working for us. I don't have anything nice to say about our government, so I'm just going to recuse.
Anthony, you're cruising. Give us an opinion here.
No,
I'm spinning plates, man. You know, I gotta. I'm not gonna touch this one.
He works for the private sector, so he's got a whole different. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I found weird about JPL, and just to be fair, JPL is the money goes to Caltech, and then they manage JPL. So you're not a civil servant; you're just an employee, you know. But what was it? I was working on one of those books that I did. And there was something about, there was a deadline, they had a shutdown on Monday or something. And, I said, well, it's okay, I'll keep going. They're like, no, it's against the law for you to work if we're not paying you that day. It's like, try to stop me, because I was in it for the mission. I wasn't
he's a maverick. He's a maverick.
No,
he's a loose cannon. Rod Pyle.
I was doing that for the same reason you're here, Tariq, because we believe in the mission, right?
I do.
And because
someone that used to work in the payroll,
you wanted to come make fun of us, yeah.
As someone that used to work in the payroll industry, I totally respect the labor laws of all of the various states here in the U.S. But I also respect the people that have what my grandparents would say gumption and want to. So every now and then, if it meant going beyond the 40 hours,
yes,
because they were passionate about it, I wouldn't stop them. I didn't force anybody to do that. But if they chose to, just as you said, hey, that's great character that this country was supposedly built on.
Well,
I feel like we got really away from what I was
finding less of it.
Sorry, you got me pissed off right now.
I'm finding less of it in the current young generation, but that's just my experience.
I'm just going to say,
let's go to an ad break. That's
just to put a pin in it. Government shutdown bad. There.
Okay. Let's go to an ad. We'll be right back. Okay. Why am I remembering I
thought this was supposed to be a fun show. Right.
A certain young person whose name I will not mention going, I have to show up to work at before 11 every day. It's like, yeah.
Hey, in college,
I can't help
classes that started before noon. I thought that was amazing.
So I would work at Griffith Observatory until about midnight, get back to UCLA dorms about 1, and I had either Russian or calculus at 7 a.m. in the morning. That's my walking upstairs walking
I respect that.
Up the hill both ways in the morning. But worse was when you started in television production, and I don't think it's changed much. The expectation is you're the production assistant, you're the new guy. and we want you here at 4:30 in the morning with the coffee and the snacks and all that other BS, the film and the camera load and so forth. And by the way, you get to open the stage and unload it all yourself before the union guys show up at 6 and start eating donuts and unfolding their director's chairs to sit down and take an early break before they have to actually lift a finger at 11 in the morning. I mean, literally, sometimes the Teamsters, no offense, Teamsters, got to have them. The country runs on Teamsters. But in this context, the truck would show up, they'd drop the tailgate, and he'd set up a director's chair and take a nap until 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock when we packed it up and he left. He didn't lift a finger to unload or anything. And I thought, to a lot of my cohort, it was like, wow, that guy's lucky. I want that job. And I thought, that's the most boring thing I've ever seen. Just stay home. Okay, I'm sorry. We're
Isn't this podcast about space?
Yes, and I have a space question for everybody. Mark, we're starting with you.
All right.
We're starting. All right. Ant, you be kind now, or the spankings will begin. What's everybody's first space memory?
Yeah, I saw this on the rundown earlier, and that was
how exciting for you.
Well, no,
that must have been a big moment for you.
Rod Pyle coming in hot, everybody. Coming in real hot. All right, real salty. No, I was thinking about it because I was trying to figure out like what it was. Because I remember when I got into like Star Trek, I remember like a lot of that stuff. Like we've talked about that in the past. But I think that it was when I might have been in like third grade. This is the earliest I can remember. Because my mom was a teacher. I'm not sure if I told everyone that she's a teacher. She's a child psychologist now.
Nice.
But she was an elementary school teacher. No. She used to pay me $5 for every test I would take when she was studying to get that, by the way. I was raking it in. So
wait, you were taking her test for her?
No, like to test, like when they diagnose kids, they got to like test them or whatever. So to practice, like she would do. Like, test
boy, I bet she had a field day with you.
Oh, you know what? She never told us what we scored, so I guess hopefully it was good. No, but I remember that she came home and she said that we were going to make rockets, and then we had a friend who had a farm, Miss Doherty, and we went out and launched them from our farms. These were like Estes rockets, but they weren't like kits, right? Like we got paper towel tubes and built them out of like ourselves, like from like I guess like schematics or something. And that's what I remember as like the first, we're going to do something that's about space, but we're going to do it ourselves. And then we went out to the farm because there's farms all around Stockton growing up, and we launched them, and we were able to go chase them like you do, because that's what you do with an Estes rocket is you chase it and capture them. And of course we couldn't fly them again because they weren't coated in anything. You know how like the Estes ones have like a coating on them. And so our motors burn straight through the sides of the paper towel tubes. But it was still a lot of fun. And I think at least one of them fell on a roof because you can't have a launch without something getting lost. And that's like I remember having a really great time on that whole thing. And after that, we were launching rockets like they were going out of style. So, and then we're here 50 years or 40 years later, so.
Yeah, you're not that old yet. Ant, how about you? Was it our first episode?
No, not quite. It's actually two things. And I want y'all to just consider the context of me being in the Black community in small town South Carolina back in the 80s and 90s. Okay, so just consider that. So my first experience with space that I can remember was 1981, 82, somewhere in that area. And it was Empire Strikes Back with Star Wars. And what is space? That's a spaceship, and that stuff blew my mind. Okay.
I am your father.
I had no recollection of anything beyond the blue sky. I just didn't. And then the next thing that hit a little bit closer to home was the Challenger. Mm-hmm. I think I might have been about 10 or so at the time because
January of 86. Yeah.
Because McNair had Carolina ties.
Oh,
Ron McNair on the flight.
Right. And I can remember when that happened. See, again, consider the context of where I was from. we were watching Challenger. Okay. And when that event happened, I remember initially not really feeling a thing because all I had to refer to was Star Wars. Stuff blows up in Star Wars and people just sort of moves on. You know, I didn't quite understand the gravity of how big and tragic that was at that time.
How old were you then?
I'm thinking I was like 10.
Yeah.
Something like that. But I remember watching it in class in school because we everybody turned on the television and, you know, we pulled it up. And I remember when it happened, the classroom just went quiet and I was confused, you know, because everybody was so quiet, but I didn't get the gravity of it, you know, until a little bit later and talking to my teacher afterwards about it and going home and speaking with my mother and my grandmother. And it's like, oh, okay, these people, you know, they gave their life right there, you know. Yeah, but yeah, that's my two.
Was that the one that was supposed to have Big Bird originally?
It had it was gonna have it had the teacher on it. It had a
yes, and it had a teacher on it.
It had a teacher, but like I thought I heard something that originally they were thinking about having like Big Bird.
Part of the educational content.
Yeah, I don't know. I could maybe I missed.
What was the lady's name? I remember McNair, but I can't remember the teacher.
Krista McAuliffe.
Dr. McAuliffe.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, you know,
my memories first two memories with space.
As awful as that was when the footage came out shortly thereafter of the camera cutting over to the parents of Krista McAuliffe, who's a civilian, right? Mm-hmm. She's not a test pilot. You know, she signed the waivers, but it's not really the same thing.
Right.
And her parents are staring at the sky, and the mother has tears streaming down her eyes because I think she's getting it. And the dad's just got this kind of dead look on his face. And it's like, what a horrible moment to go there for this triumphal, joyous thing to see your daughter, the teacher, go into space and do. And, you know, if anybody's ever seen the IMAX film, The Dream is Alive, that was done a couple of years before Challenger happened. You know, we were living in this kind of fantasy zone of, oh, the space shuttle, it's a routine system. It's our space truck up to orbit. Mm-hmm. And that film and NASA's public relations in general was trying to make it seem very normal and routine. They were planning at one point of flying 54 times a year. Haha. They, I think, averaged 3.
They once every 2 weeks, they said.
Yeah, right? They were just going to hose it off, fuel it up, and go like Starship. But it was a little ahead of its time. It was really complex. And have you ever actually seen a shuttle in person?
Have not, sir. Have not.
So if you get a chance, they have one in L.A., and it used to be flat. So you'd walk on its landing gear, you'd walk underneath it, and there's just acres of heat tiles over your head. Right. And you really finally get the idea of how incredibly massive these things are. They're now moving it into a vertical configuration, which will still give a sense of its size. But it's huge, it's complicated. It's covered in these little silica foam tiles that if you flick them with your fingernail hard enough, they crack. So the fact that the thing worked at all is a real testament to fine engineering. But yeah, it was incredibly dangerous, and that was a sad day. All right, I'm depressed.
Real weighty.
Thanks, everybody. End of episode. Anthony, do we have time to hear from you before we go to break?
Yeah. So like probably Star Wars on TV. Also, so my dad's Danish, on my father's side, they're from Denmark, and my aunt used to send Lego sets, and we definitely had one of those like early space kits.
The blue ones, the blue and the white ones, or the Blacktron ones. I had all of them.
I think a little bit of both. I was looking at a page over here.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of looks familiar, but definitely
I think I had
this kind of look. This
the Blacktron
is familiar. Yeah. So
I had one of those sets, the one right above it, Anthony. This one right here. Yeah. I got like deathly ill with like some sort of like severe flu, and I was out a week, and my parents got me this to like help me get through it. And my best friend came over after I had spent like 3 days building it, and said, "Does it fly?" and threw it off the top of the TV, and it shattered. And I never, because I had thrown away the directions, because that's what you did back then, and I could never build it again. So that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
I think I had the one above there,
the first one.
Yeah, I think I had that one. Yeah.
So when I was a young man, they had Lego, but all we had were white and red bricks, gray plates, and wheels. That was it. They didn't even have kits. They just had like a box of Lego. It's like, okay, use your imagination and make something. Oh, what do I do? Well, my first memory,
tablet with the chisel.
Yeah, what's yours, Rod?
Ow.
Your first memory.
My first memory is, and I don't know which Gemini mission it was, but I remember standing in the orchestra lounge at the Music Center in LA because my father was a French horn player in the Philharmonic.
Nice.
So I used to go to work with him. And I didn't, really give a hang about the music so much. That came later. I just stay in the lounge and play with my Legos or whatever. And all the musicians, they're different crowd then than it is now. They're still nice people, but back then they were mostly guys, mostly war veterans, mostly, hey, kid, come over here. Here's a cigarette. What do you think? And they were very nice to me. But I was hearing on the PA system this crackly noise, and I said, Dad, what's that? And he said, it's the Gemini space capsule. Actually, Dad didn't talk about Walter Cronkite. That was just me. But it was, I think, Gemini. It must have been Gemini 10 or somewhere around there. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. So I went home and would have jumped on the internet had we had one. But instead, I went to the school library and got I was looking for any space book I could find in our elementary school library, which at that point was funded pretty well. And all they had was like the big golden book of rockets, and everything looked like a silver banana from the Von Braun fever dream of how it was just awful. So finally, an issue of Weekly Reader, which is long since gone, I think, had an article about the Gemini astronauts. And so that's when I got interested. But my first really kind of white hot memory was Apollo 8. So we had all been, it was like today with Artemis, counting down the months. How many more months delay? How many more months delay? Oh, Apollo 1 fire. Oh, that's a tragedy. But come on, I want you to hurry up because I want to see it happen. Very selfish as a young man. So Apollo 8 goes out to loop the moon. And I knew enough to know that it was a big risk they were taking and much more than they were telling the public because I was, 12 at that point. 11. I was 11 at that point. And I thought, they got no lunar module. They got one engine with two igniters on the back of that thing. And if they get into lunar orbit and can't get it restarted, they're staying there forever. And that's not good. And there's no possibility of a rescue. There wasn't a single rocket stacked or anything, a separate rocket stack. So that mission I followed in excruciating detail. And the reading of Genesis from lunar orbit, I'm not a religious person, nor was I particularly then. But there was something really magical about the reading of that kind of prose from lunar orbit in a time when nobody had left Earth orbit before. So that was breathtaking. And from that point on, I was hooked and, much to Ant's dismay, hopelessly enamored of the space program.
Bless your heart.
And then, of course, Apollo 11, knowing that was happening. And from there on out, I announced to my parents I was not going to school on moonwalk days. And because I was basically raised like a wolf cub, they were like, yeah, okay, whatever. And they go off to work. I stayed home. He said, did you go to school today? No. Okay. There's a longer story there of non-attendance of school. It became a habit. Let's go to a break before
Explains the math thing. So.
Oh, it explains a lot. If you would be better. We'll be right back.
All
right. What we've all been waiting for. Space toys. One of my bells fell off. I guess that's better than if it was spelled differently.
Yeah.
Let's talk about space toys. So I'll start this time. Over there, if you're watching the video stream, there's a little green robot. Not the silver space girl, but the green robot. That's Big Lou, the moon robot by the Marx Toy Company. $9.95 in 1965. He is made a very cheap.
Was that like $100 in today's?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad. Well, thanks, Dad. I think you're up there. Yeah, it was a fair amount of money. Came in a 5-foot high box. It was a remarkable thing for a kid just because of its scale. So he had blinking lights in his eyes, a whistle in his forehead. I never understood that. A gun sight in his forehead, where a man's breasts would be. He had two little dart guns, which I found very Austin Powers of him. Of course, I was no Austin Powers then. He had a if you can see, if you're watching the video, his arm is up on the astronaut's shoulder. That's a grabbing claw. It has a little wire and a spring. He had a bell with a Morse code table above it in a hole in his back. He had a hole through his midsection with a squirt gun and 2 rubber dart launchers, missile launchers on his feet. There was no motor. And a small crank in the back of his head with a tiny phonograph record. I kid you not. That you would crank and it would go, "My name is Big Lou. I am yours to command." That was it. So I played with that thing to death, and of course, being styrene, stuff broke within the first couple of months. So, it's broke, Dad, fix it. But it was a cool space toy, and probably up there with what was the other one? I had a moon truck. Now, mind you, when I was a little boy, they were just kind of inventing plastic. We had just come out of the Bakelite days, which was this baked plastic-like thing that was so brittle if you looked at it crooked, it snapped in half. So early plastic toys were not particularly ambitious, and if they had something electrical in them, it was pretty astonishing. And of course, being a kid, it's like, change the batteries? What? So every toy you had within a year was ruined because it had battery leakage in it, and you'd pick it up and, Mommy, my eyes burn, because you got battery acid on your face. But those were my 2 memories, and then I got into rockets and all that stuff later. Tariq, I'm sure you have a stirring memory for space toys. Huh?
Were those pictures you sent?
No, I'm sorry. I forgot. Yes. But the big one, boy, talk about getting swept up in the show. But the big one is Major Matt Mason, Mattel's Man in Space. So this is one of the first action figures ever, actually, made out of rubber. And it's an astronaut that was probably about 5 inches tall, had bendy joints. The arms and legs were just wire. So, of course, they broke within 6 months. Had a little plastic helmet with a visor that flipped up and down. Then all these accessories. So
look at this.
Here's the 4 astronauts. Matt Mason's on the left. Jeff Long is on the right. This is Mattel creating an African American astronaut in 1968, which they were ahead of NASA.
Yeah,
like way ahead of NASA. And here's Callisto. When they weren't selling enough of the astronaut dolls by themselves, they got into aliens, and it got stupid. And there's another alien there, if you can switch, Anthony. Captain Laser. So this is interesting. Completely out of scale with the others. Hard plastic where they were soft plastic. Turns out I later found it was some Japanese toy line that went out of business that Mattel bought and said, cynically, we can just sell this to those little idiots with our Matt Mason stuff. But for the first couple of years, Matt Mason was kind of following the NASA moon prescription. Here he is on his moon sled.
Wow.
So, if you were into the hard NASA stuff, it's like, this is pretty close. They had a space station, which you're looking at now. They had a moon crawler.
That's neat.
There.
But then
it's like
it got into
Barbie dream house, but like in space.
Then it got into aliens and tentacles and all that kind of stuff, and it kind of lost its way. So that doll right there, if you were to find it today in very good condition, it would cost you about $600.
Wow.
Should I look at the commercial?
Yes, so let's... Anthony, thank you for reminding me of the cues I gave you. Here's a commercial from my childhood.
Meet Major Matt Mason, Mattel's Man in Space.
Look at it,
and
lights
the
up.
bravest astronaut yet. He lives on the moon. We may all be there soon. And he gets around with a jet. Until Sergeant Storm in his red uniform, Major Matt worked all alone. Now, together, they face the dangers of space and seek to learn the unknown. The machines that they drive seem almost alive as they transport the adventurous pair. The new Astrotrack whips through the black, and Firebolt even goes where they meet Captain Laser, his space gear ablaze with energy stored from the stars. He's
and out of focus.
It's true, but a friendly one who spent his boyhood on Mars.
My gosh, he's so huge.
An exciting place, the world of space, as all the astronauts know. This world is swell. It's made by Mattel. With it, how far can you go?
Wow.
So almost
I can see why Little Rod would like that. Yeah.
So in that era, many commercials are shot in 16 millimeter. They look like it. That was all handheld, as you can see. The ads were horrible. And the reason you see the kid is because I think only just a couple years before, the FTC had passed a law saying, look, you can't show these toys doing stuff that they can't really do. Because before that, toy ads, you know, they were taking off and flying through the air and all this stuff. And the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, said, yeah, they don't do that. You got to show the kid holding it with a string. So suddenly ads got very lame. But compare the production value of that to today, it's like Ant's kid could do that without even waking up from his slumbers. You know,
I'll tell you the first thing I thought
pretty
seeing
good.
that commercial, and even when I saw commercials back then, you know, it wasn't in the 60s, but just in the 80s, seeing similar style commercials, I look at it and I'm like, ooh, that kid's rich. Did you see the set? And it's like, this is their room, and like, dang, that kid's loaded.
Someone on the Discord mentioned that in the background you see the silhouettes of all the parents having a party in the background.
Yeah.
It's like, thank God those little suckers aren't in this room. All right, who wants to go next? Thank you, Anthony, for reminding me of the very cues I gave you and forgot about.
You know, you reminded me of like my first big space toy that I had for like a hot minute when I was a little kid, because my parents for Christmas bought me, or Santa bought me. I think it was my parents. I think that, you know, you want to keep the big one from you, not from Santa.
Can I tell you something there, Mr. Tariq?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
From Santa, from parents, that's usually the same thing.
No, Santa's real. Santa's real, Ant. What are you talking about? Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it for no one. No. Santa's little. You know,
That wasn't Santa, Tariq. That was your weird Uncle Harry.
No, I don't. And Anthony, I forgot to put this in the rundown, but it was the Transformers Omega Supreme, and for the 80s kids out there that you might someone said that W says that you destroyed his childhood, Ant, with that Santa comment. But the Omega Supreme is a space base. He is a rocket, a giant rocket from the planet Cybertron that ends up transporting all of the Autobots, you know, back to Earth. He's like their big space rocket. And there's a train that would drive around Omega Supreme. And then the main robot would be in the center. And then if you wanted to convert him from the giant rocket set into a robot, you would transform them all, and it would be amazing, right? And I was so excited because all I wanted was Omega Supreme. First of all, his name, there, you got a picture of him. His name
He looks
is
like
Omega.
a roadkill bumblebee.
Oh my gosh, he's amazing. Look how awesome
So
that
is
is.
this a cartoon character?
Dude, you just missed my whole thing about how he was a
were you
transformer
listening?
from the planet Cybertron.
No, I was taking a small nap.
So
You know, when Tariq gets excited, I just hear this.
there it
buzzing
is.
in my
There it is. See,
brain,
look,
but there's
look,
no
look,
words.
look at this picture.
That's
If you
huge.
Wow!
look at it.
Wait a minute.
Right? Isn't that spectacular? It's this giant rocket with its own mission control base, and then this track around the rocket that a little kind of tank drives around. And it was motorized. And when we bought it, when I opened it up, like it wouldn't go. Like the track, the little car was broken.
Okay,
Like,
excuse me. How tall is that thing?
Oh, I don't know. Like it looks huge here, but it's like
Yeah.
maybe 2 feet tall, something like that.
So I just
14
want to point
inches?
out my toy is bigger than yours. Okay, go
Oh my
ahead.
god! Oh, see, we can't get through an episode, you know. But I thought that this was like the most sci-fi thing I had ever seen, with the tracks on the back like wings, and he has like a claw in one hand, which is the crane from the actual rocket base, and this big blaster arm on the other, and it was just awesome. And he had a little figure that would go in the little tank that drove around.
So it transforms into the base.
It transforms into the base. Yeah, it's the base, and then it transforms into the giant robot. So, I mean, it's absolutely it was great, and because the tank didn't go, we took it back to exchange it for another one, and unfortunately they didn't have any. They didn't have anything at all to be able, and they weren't going to get more. So we ended up bringing home the G.I. Joe headquarters base, and then I played with that like almost every day for like the next 10 years. So until I got into high school. So this was my big space toy that got away, I should say, for me. You know what? I'm a grown up person now, Rod. I could buy
You're
that
a
for
grown-up
myself.
person now, but you're still shedding crocodile tears over this. Ant, I'm suspecting your first like toy of greatness was like a leather football or something, right? Probably not a space toy.
No, not even close. Not even close.
Lump of coal?
Actually, I believe it was just a bicycle, a BMX bicycle that I had wanted.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good gift.
Yeah, that was because I went outside. Unlike, you know.
Excuse me.
It hurts right here. So,
Yeah.
right
The
in
truth
the heart.
hurts. The truth
We
hurts.
got back in my day, we got basically locked out of the house at 8 a.m. It's like, don't come back till
I
dark.
did too.
Okay. I'm just saying, this pasty complexion spent a lot of time out in the sun earning its skin cancer, honestly. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No,
so you
I
spent
think
time
my
outside
face
chasing
on-
around bags of air because that's what you do.
No. I think that the only space related thing that I can remember getting like early was Transformers Skywarp. It was a toy.
Skyborg?
Skywarp.
Skywarp. Oh, of course.
The southern drawl coming out there. But the one thing I do remember about it was two things. I didn't know what the heck a Transformers was, but I was glad to have it. And turning it into a robot from I think it was like a Tomcat jet. Was it a Tomcat jet?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it turned into a Tomcat jet, and then going out and playing with it with the other kids in the apartment complex and whatnot, and found out another kid had one, and his was called Thundercracker, and I was jealous. That's like the memory that I have around that. I was like, oh, Thundercracker sounds way cooler. It was the exact same thing, just a different color and a whole much cooler name.
We can call you anything you want.
Those were the Skywarp, Thundercracker, and Starscream.
Right?
Those were like the main Decepticon planes.
Yeah.
Okay, dude. Try and keep your inner geek under wraps. Will you? And then in
It's called
1964,
This Week in Space.
Wait a minute, cuz.
It's called. Yeah, it's talking about.
yeah, it's not
space
called This
robot
Week in
with
Space
Whistle in the
Toys.
head.
Okay, Anthony, you're up, man.
So I did have like those Estes model rocket kits that we launched a few times. Smelled like eggs, right?
Speaking of that,
Smells like napalm in the morning. Yeah.
But also there was a video game that I was playing on the iMac as a kid called Escape Velocity.
Huh.
And it was like an open-ended I don't know how to describe it, but it's basically like you could either, do space combat or like merchant stuff. Like you could buy, resources on one planet and, take it to another planet. And
You were Han Solo.
These
Yeah, pretty
graphics
much.
look like they're from 1984. How old are you, Anthony? Are you
he said
45?
iMac when he was a kid on iMac. Remember
You're
when
about
iMac
right
was like
there, Mr.
like the most amazing
That's a
computer that
happening
came
thing,
out?
yeah. What
Yeah,
color was
I
your iMac?
well, we had the original,
Blue, Bondi blue?
the Bondi Blue, yeah.
Yeah.
So like this must have been like mid 90s. And you could also like, if you're really, nerdy, you could like modify your own sprites and like, modify the game stuff. But like, see, you could like, it was really cool. You could buy upgrades for your ship, like some torpedo launchers and whatnot. You could see it was definitely inspired by Star Trek.
Yeah, it looks
like
very privateer like that game
Yeah.
Privateer where you could do all that stuff too. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
it was a lot of fun.
So I had forgotten until somebody mentioned Estes that I also got an Estes model rocket when I was about 8, the Alpha, which was, I think, the only one they sold at the time.
Yeah.
And it was before they had the plastic fins on it. So basically, they gave you a cardboard tube, a sheet of balsa wood, and a wooden nose cone. And you had to go out and buy paint and glue. And I spent probably a month sanding the fins to a perfect bevel and sanding the nose cone and painting it, priming it and painting it again and all this junk. And I went, Dad, can we go fly the rocket? They don't do that around here. It's like, well, then why did you buy it for me? So it sat on the shelf for the next 15 years. And then finally, when I was an adult, more or less, working in production, we started going down to Mile Square Park because had Dad bothered to check. No offense, Dad. No offense, Dad. But you could go down to Orange County and fly anything you wanted. And the weird thing was Mile Square Park, which, hey, guess what? It's a mile on each axis, is filled with weeds. So we go down there in the middle of the summer, and you're looking at this thing that spits fire out of its back end to get in the sky, and you're looking at these acres of dry weeds, and I'm thinking, this is not a good mix. And sure enough, second or third launch, and at this point I had graduated to just buying massive boxes of rocket parts and just throwing stuff together. We flew salad colanders, we flew turkey drumsticks, we flew skyrocket Barbie strapped to a rocket, because following instructions isn't particularly fun. But making stuff up is, especially if you don't know whether it's going to fly horizontally or vertically or what. But of course, the third or fourth launch, a fire started, so we had to go out and stamp it out with our feet. But very fond memories of my delayed emergence as a Rocketeer.
Can I do a show and tell, or do we have to break? I have a quick thing to show everybody.
What's it rated?
No, it's like, what do you mean rated? Rated E for everyone, like the rest of the show.
Okay, just checking. Anthony, do we need another ad, or are we clear? Oh, yeah, we do. You said that.
We do have another ad, but
let's get out of the way before Tariq's big reveal, because I want to be ready for this. Actually pay attention.
All right. I want to show off, because I got this. So we were talking about Estes rockets, and you can see, I don't know if you can see behind me, but I have my here's my SLS rocket right here. This is not Estes, but this is like the first SpaceX version of the model rocket that they put out. And then way off in the corner, you're going to see the big mess. I think that everyone probably knows about it already. But way off in the corner is, can I do it? Oh, let's see if I can do it. Right there, that big black box is the new SpaceX rocket. I haven't launched it yet because I'm afraid I might break it. But in this box, you can see it says it's from Estes. I opened it from the bottom. And I've actually not looked at it yet, but I'm really excited about this one too. Because like Rod was saying, there used to be a space shuttle.
Here comes the unboxing.
Yeah, here it is. There used to be a space shuttle where you could launch a NASA space shuttle. And here it is. Here it is. You see all the... It's on. Oh, there it is. Right there.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
Okay, now wait a minute. This is cheating. That's already built.
I know. That's the thing, is that now they come already made.
Oh, man.
Which it kind of takes some of it. But what they do, Rod, is that they release this version here for like us that want to just grab it, launch it, and then the shuttle will come off and fly back. It's made out of foam, it looks like. So it'll glide back to Earth, and then the nose cone pops off from the external tank right there, and that's where the parachute's going to come out. And this is for what? This is for 183 meters, 600 feet, is what it says that it'll fly, and it's got a little nice diagram on the back. Now
what engine does it use?
They also make like buildable ones. It says C5 to C6 engines, Rod.
Wow, 600 feet off of that. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so like the reason that I had this, I was saving it because I haven't launched it. We usually try to wait until the baseball season is over to go to the school diamonds to launch from. But I haven't had a chance for this one yet.
I have a little league story.
Laughing at you? Is that what it is?
I was like, say it again, Ant?
Because you didn't want all the baseball fans laughing at you?
No. Well, so the last time that we went, I took my Blue Origin rocket, which also comes. They make two versions of that too. They make the hard plastic one, and they make like a build it your own set. And I had the pre-built one, and I was using underpowered engines for it, B motors instead of the C motors. And it didn't go high enough, and so it augured back in where all the kids were playing soccer. Ooh. And when I realized that the parachute wasn't going to come out, I just started shouting, "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" And then pow, right in the field. And then of course it pops back, but it survived. It's a really hardy rocket. That version's really good. So
you mentioned the one that you just showed was pre-built, but have they done some market research to say, you know what, there's no sense in us having it all just pieces where the person has to put it together themselves, or what's the reason behind that? Seems like
they build them for two different audiences, and so for Blue Origin in particular, they released two different versions. So there's like a build it yourself version that's a little bit more expensive, and then there's like the kit one itself, and they're and so they build it so that people that maybe don't have patience, or if they have like kids who just want to go out and launch ready, they make it so that they can just grab and go. The SLS is like that too. The one drawback from the SLS rocket that I have, because it's a very beautiful model, is that you don't build anything yourself. It's all pre-made. You put some stickers on. I think that's about it.
So that's kind of interesting. I wonder what Ant brought up, if there was some market research, and not just with model rockets, but across the toy industry that says, hey, kids don't like to do mechanical hand-eye stuff anymore. They want to play games.
They want code.
But like for the Saturn V, for example, I think you can buy two different ones, because I also have a pre-built Saturn V.
But you know who's building those Saturn Vs. We see it online all the time in places like Space Hipsters. They're guys my age.
I was going to say, they're not kids.
No.
They weren't that
and they're sure not flying it.
One of my close friends.
Wait, Anthony's got something.
I was just saying, like, there wasn't a whole lot of building, so like, might as well get it ready. It's like you're just like kind of gluing the top on and the fins. It's like,
okay, so it's 10 pieces.
There's not a whole lot to them, right?
Yeah, for the ones that you build, it really depends, because they have different skill levels.
Yeah, if you scratch build, you can get into stuff that's like level 10, where you've got. I mean, I built a glider once that I just designed in my own head, which is never a good place to spend time. It was probably 5 feet tall with about a 4-foot wingspan. And I bought like a foam model of a 747, just cut the dickens out of it, and a big shipping tube for the rocket. And I had the wings were on wooden dowel hinges with enormous rubber bands going up to the front, and a rubber band holding them together below. So when the parachute charge fired, it burned through that rubber band. The wings were supposed to flip forward, and it would glide back. And it kind of did for a second before it went vertical and augured in. But that's the thing. I don't expect these suckers to fly more than once. And I did have one that was a masterful design, if I do say so myself, called the Bat Rock. So it was about 5 feet tall, about 3.5 inches diameter. So it had a main tube about a foot tall, which held the engines. It used 3D engines, I think. Then 2 wooden struts going up to another tube section at the top with a very large nose cone. And I had a 5-foot diameter parachute that I had taken marking pens. I'm giving up on this thing.
Your Santa hat is failing you.
Yeah.
The holidays don't believe in you, Rod.
And
so, we still do. I believe.
So I made a 5-foot Batman signal, like the searchlight thing. And I have to say, when that thing went up and deployed, it worked perfectly, and the whole rocket range stopped. Everybody went, whoa, and they started clapping. It was my finest moment, other than being with you guys.
Nice.
Oh.
Now, have we heard about Anthony and his toys? Space toys?
Yeah, well, I mentioned Legos earlier, then I did the video game.
Okay, so that's it. Okay, that's good. That works. Tariq, you were about telling another story, and I stopped.
No, I was just going to say that, like, because I actually spent a lot of high school building model rockets and not launching them, because I didn't have anyone to go launch them with, and also my launcher broke. So I would just build them, and Ant, like some of them, like and Anthony, some of them were really difficult. Like there's like a Starfighter one where all the pieces are super intricate, and then what we didn't talk about is these pre-made ones in the back end of them. They have like a slot where you just put the motor in, and you screw like a holder to hold it in place. Mm-hmm. And on those ones that are really detailed, you actually have to build that holder yourself and hope that you assembled it correctly so that the motor will stay inside that, and the glue will hold it in the tube enough that it will take the whole rocket off and not just like launch straight out, because that has happened to me before, where I forgot to glue it in and then it just takes off, Yeah. But I had a friend of mine who bought the scaled Mercury, which I also have in the basement. I haven't built it yet, but the Mercury capsule, and it's quite large and it's very intricate. And not only do you have to build it, like I'm just saying, to all of the specifications, make sure that the fins are mounted not just straight, but also in the right configuration so it doesn't spin or twirl. But then you have to paint it so that it looks accurate, because it's all like unpainted and unfinished. So you want it to look pretty. And I just found out today from Zyla Foxland, the YouTuber / creator / rocketeer. She does high altitude rockets. She's the one that basically launched a Christmas tree on a suborbital rocket. She's launched like a giant pumpkin people and whatnot. And she just has created what is in effect an Estes kit for high altitude rocketry. So you can buy a kit for $250 and design and build your own high-powered rocket, and then try to go get certified for that. And I'm very excited about that. So
I just want to point out, Tariq is constantly grinding on me about time and so forth, but when he gets talking, we end up at 65 minutes.
I'm sorry. I like rockets.
I'm going to close the toy chapter by just saying one thing we did, and we were adults, so we probably weren't supposed to be playing with toys at this point, but that's never stopped me. Friend Gary Hutzel, I had met when I was in TV, and I worked for him over at Star Trek, so he was a very clever visual effects guy. When we were launching these rockets, I built this physical launch platform that had flame deflectors and launch towers and all kinds of, blinky lights and stuff just for fun. He used his Radio Shack, I think it was a Trash 80 computer, and designed a launch sequencer. So it would automatically launch the rocket. So it had a digital countdown thing. And then, sorry about that. And then it would, close the relay and off the rocket would go. But he had like 3 different voices and all this other stuff that we thought was very clever. But then he added a randomizer, which is of course what we always use. So you'd press the button to go 10, 9, 3, 5, 4, 7, fire! And off it would go. And that was just too much fun. And the dads around us didn't seem to approve too much. Kids. Like, you guys are irresponsible. Oh, we did fly one time out at Hanson Dam, which is another legitimate rocket range. We were flying out of there. And probably an eighth of a mile away from us are these guys flying their RC airplanes. And I don't know if you've ever been around them, but they get very serious. So they're wearing jumpsuits with patches, and they've got ranks, and they have a commander and a lieutenant commander and all this stuff. These are grown men,
Mm-hmm. Don't yuck on young man. Come on.
If you're selling insurance and you want to get in, sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody, but these guys are ridiculous. So one of the trim ramrod straight guys comes striding over, bump, 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 like a robot, and he says, "Hey, hey!" I said, "What?" He said, "Are you the rocket guys?" And I said, "Yeah." "You're endangering our aircraft." I said, "What are you talking about? We're launching over this way." "Well, we have free range to fly where we want, and your rockets are like missiles." And of course, the second he says that, me being me, I'm like, "Oh, that's a good idea." So after that, we started aiming for them. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Now, they didn't have guidance systems, but you could still kind of sort of lean them over that direction. And if you were fortunate, you might have a midair collision. And their little toy planes cost like up to $5,000 because they're fan jets and all this kind of stuff. So I get that they were a little irked at my $3 scratch-built death missile, but move your setup. Don't make me move mine.
Yeah, that I would have aimed at them too.
Well, they're being a little anal. It's like, come on, these are
space and all.
These are our hobbies.
And how old were you, Rod? How old were you when this was going on?
Were you 28?
28. All right.
Well, you expect me to be grown up even now?
Just saying.
Give me a break. What was the snap tight space shuttle?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we didn't talk about that. I had a whole list of things. The Snaptight was one of the first models I ever built, but I wasn't allowed. I think I've told you all this before. I was not allowed to use models that required glue.
Yeah, what was with your mother?
And
she just knew you were going to coat your nostrils with the glue and start
one
sniffing,
of my favorite
right?
models I ever had, we were at Pick and Save, and it was $20 in like the 80s, early 80s.
Because
Pick and Save.
When I'm thinking quality toys, I go to Pick and Save.
Well, hey, all right. I don't judge anyone. I mean, that's what we did. Okay, we went to Pick and Save to shop, and they had one paper tab and slot space shuttle and shuttle carrier aircraft, and it was like 4 feet long. It was huge, this thing, and I loved it. I wanted to glue it together so that I could hang it up above, and my mom said no, I wasn't allowed to use the glue, so I could use
so you just
cellophane
started
tape.
Licking all the pieces.
I used cellophane tape, and I taped it together, and then I hung it up, and it hung up on the ceiling for years until we moved, and then
here's one of those stories of heartbreak.
No,
my parents threw out my cardboard toy. It was awful.
I will. It's a good lesson that if you're going to move house, move the stuff you like yourself. Is all I'm going to say. Because when I started asking about them and thought later on, it was just like I don't know where that stuff went. Obviously, it got thrown out. Yep. So now I know.
I guess they expected you to outgrow it.
But no, the Snap Type, the Snap Type shuttle was like in the same vein. I had a little table.
So the great thing about making models, and again, as I pointed out, my parents kind of had a general idea that I was alive and existed somewhere, but it kind of ended there. So of course we had testers, airplane glue, and of course it was the incredibly toxic stuff. And you're working in a little closed room and it's 3 inches from your face. You're thinking, oh, this model looks pretty good, and you've got one wing in the side, one coming up the top, because you're seeing green elephants, you know.
Well, I will tell you,
it's like, why did nobody think that was a bad idea to be inhaling cyanosulfates or whatever they were?
I will tell you that I got a model of the Star Trek 6 NCC 1701A space shuttle, which is the best one that they've ever built, or Star Trek 5, pardon. It's the best one they ever made. But the Galileo
best what they ever made.
It's a Revell model of the Starship Enterprise. And
okay, because I thought you were gonna try and bend me to it was the best Enterprise or the best movie, and it was definitely not.
This was great, but and by then I had just decided, you know, I was allowed to use contact cement, and I got it half built, and then the nacelle that goes, the little arm, it snapped because I wasn't careful, and now I can never put it together. And all those parts are still half built in the closet at my mother's house, because
Tariq, enough glue will fix anything.
You'd think that it would, and yet I was so careful painting the saucer too. I was so bummed. So bummed.
You know, people that follow instructions just drive me bats. I'm sorry. I mean, for IKEA, I get it because they're always one screw short, so you better follow directions up to that point. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's like, why would you want to follow directions when you could just start finding parts in the kitchen drawer and add all kinds of things to make it more deadly?
I'll tell you what I'll do. Ant and Anthony, there you go. That's the one, Anthony. I will find that model if it's still in the house, and I'll get some new glue, you know, because I'm sure there have been wonders in the last 40 years of glue technology.
It's not that 30 different.
Years. And we'll see if we can put it back together again. So,
all right, that's fair. Hey, we could do that as an episode. We'll sit and work with you to put it back together, and then Ant can just rumble over and over in your ear, loser.
Well, Micah does a crafting corner.
Yeah,
stream every month. You could join him and just like do.
Wow, what an idea! And then we can
I got a lot of Legos in the basement
with pity in his eyes because
I
we
got
don't
a lot
get
of
to
space
see
Legos in the basement.
Often. So, Ant, did you ever do the model airplane thing?
I did not do model airplanes, but I did do a couple model cars. And you guys talking about this stuff right now, it's making me think back, and I'm like, yeah, I should go to Walmart or somewhere right now and go grab a model, because it was so freaking soothing.
It's therapeutic, huh?
Just to sit there with the light and try to put everything together, and then getting down to painting and all of that. I really did enjoy that back in the days. All
right. Hey, why does space matter? This is a whip around. Why does space matter to you if it does? Let's start with Ant.
No, you don't want to do that, bro.
Yes, I do.
Look here. When we started developing this show, I remember having meetings with said leadership, and was like, yeah, I help out, but I don't give a crap about I was straight up. And, you know, I enjoy working with you all, but the stuff that I had heard about space never really made any sense to me, never interests me. And I'm glad to have met you all, because you at least make it somewhat interesting. But in the larger scheme of things, I just don't care. I hear about all of these millions of dollars these couple of private companies are spending to launch this way out away from the planet. And all I think about is that money could have been dumped into cancer research, stuff like that.
Oh, this old thing again.
You know, or that money could have been gone. It could have gone somewhere else, because I'm not seeing what we're getting here on our green grass or brown grass or wherever we are on this planet. I'm not seeing how it's benefiting us right now. Yes, we can have different technologies develop and whatnot that we, you know, could use down the road. But when I walk through dadgum San Francisco or here in Santa Rosa and see all of the issues that all they need is some money to at least try to resolve said issues, and then turn on some newscast of this rocket was launched into space just as a test, and it costed $1 gazillion. That stuff bugs me, you know?
So this is a classic conversation, which it deserves an episode of its own.
Yeah.
But the return, so just going back to Apollo, but this holds true pretty much moving forward. The return for each dollar invested just in raw cash terms to the national economy was between $16 and $25. So 1 to 16 to 24 ratio. Then when you start looking at the specific spin-offs, cancer research and wound healing and different pharmaceuticals and stuff, it's a really compelling conversation.
Yeah.
But in the bigger conversation, there was a time in the 60s when NASA was funding more education in the country than the Department of Education was. And as a driver,
That's awesome.
So it's at this point they're working with 0.5% of the federal budget, and yet as a driver of technology and research and education and so forth, the numbers are really compelling, and especially when you go overseas. So when I went down to Ecuador, when I went to about a year ago, Norway, other places. People there think we're crazy. They think NASA's the greatest thing that's ever happened, and they can't wait to come work for that agency. So where I'm going with that is the amount of inspiration it gives young people, except you, Ant, is really, it's kind of astonishing to me, because I knew I was into it because I'm a space geek, but just in general. So it's a longer conversation. I don't mean to bury your point because it is a valid point, but honestly, if I was going to point at something, it's there's an incredible value of the inspiration it gives a country to achieve something like a lunar landing. If I was going to pare something back, I would I would
on the moon.
I would shoot down the F-35 in a heartbeat. Not needed, overblown, entering an era where almost everything's going to be flown by drones. Okay, let the combat pilots ride in and say, well, that's not going to happen. But this thing's coming up on $1 trillion. We'd be living on condos on the rings of Saturn by now if we had that kind of money for space. So, I can't completely disagree with what you're saying. I do think there's a misallocation and mismanagement of funds like most people do.
Yeah.
But holy Christ, how much do we have to spend on defense? Because China's going to find a way to get those designs and build their own anyway. So maybe we just shouldn't build it in the first place and give them the chance. Okay, I'm sorry.
Again, I see when SpaceX sends one of their rockets up into the air and that thing literally comes back down by itself and lands. That's amazing. And it blows my mind every time I see it, because I may know 2 people that actually know how to parallel park their car, but we're able to do something like that. That is just outstanding, but at the same time, how can we apply that technology to these people that don't know how to parallel park their car?
Well, but if you look at that exact rocket you're talking about, the Falcon 9, and realize that it's launching batches of 20 Starlink satellites at a time. And as Steve Jurvetson, who we've had on the show, who is an heavy investor in SpaceX. Which
is a good thing. Starlink's a good thing.
Said, and his point was, how many Einsteins and Gandhis and Mother Teresas are out there that we're going to be able to reach with global high-speed internet, bring into the educational system that we're not talking to today. And he gave me a bunch of numbers that I've forgotten about how many people don't have comms access even today and so forth. I thought that's a really interesting point. I'd never thought of it that way. So there's, talk about spin-off benefits. I mean, besides making our faux president,
unless they are
richer,
destroying the ozone layer as they burn up, because they only have like a 5-year orbit life, right?
Yeah, but at the rate he's replacing them, it doesn't matter. And let's remember, those are controlled reentries. Well, they don't just come back.
No, but there's
it's pollution too.
The pollution part, like if we are breaking the ozone again.
Okay. I mean, again, this is a longer conversation, but
I need to be back on the show again.
That's right. We talk about it.
Go to a manufacturing complex in Pittsburgh or Detroit and watch that cranking out 24 hours a day, these plumes of crap, and then compare that to a rocket that goes up in 40
maybe
seconds.
the Blue Origin stuff's better.
Rod sounds a bit defensive.
Their orbit life is supposed to be longer, right? Like,
yeah. And honestly, I mean, space debris re-enters every minute of every day. You know, these are bigger than most, but they're parts of old blown up rockets, chunks of frozen fuel. There's crap coming back all the time. It's just part of the background noise. I mean, compare that just to the methane thaw that's happening in the permafrost up in the Arctic, where these enormous clasts of icy methane are now thawing in the atmosphere. And, you know, it's like the farting of a billion cows all at once or something. To me, that's much more of a concern.
Well, you say that, but
up.
Starship is a methane rocket. And so New Glenn is a methane rocket.
Yeah, but that's cows don't burn their farts. Those rockets do.
Or like we lay fiber down once versus like shipping up, like sending up how many satellites every year to replenish them. I don't know.
Yeah, the difference here is the reach. So when I was up in the Arctic for that month a couple of years ago, we used Iridium satellite phone, and I could get. In fact, I was using it to call into the show.
Yeah, I remember
the Leo show.
I remember,
and I could get like 90 seconds, and then it would start to, and it was gone. Last year they went up, and they finally have Starlink, and they're up at 80 degrees, so they're pretty far north, and it was perfect. So, you know, is that important? Well, for that project it is. But what I'm getting at is when you start looking at the populations that are living north and south of what are these traditionally convenient places or profitable places, more importantly. So, you know, South America, there are places there that have trouble getting a signal. Certainly Africa, there's a whole bunch of areas that aren't wired in. So, you know, how many of them could afford the Starlink terminal and whatever monthly fees there are? I don't know. I would hope at some point, and I know they talked about it, SpaceX talked about it, that they would end up, you know, gifting to certain parts of the world access to this for a certain amount of time so that people can get up to speed.
But I mean, like, to Anthony's point, you know, the reason that you get the I know that we're kind of really long. We probably need to wrap up soon, but like
I got all day, guys.
The counterpoint is that, you know, to Anthony's point is that yes, there's this great spinoff. People get a lot of connectivity, but these satellites are flying in an intentionally low orbit to give you that connectivity, which means they die faster, which means that they have to be launched and replaced a lot faster. And this is 44,000 satellites. It's not 15. It's not 30 over time.
It's not 44,000 satellites. It's nowhere close to that now.
That's the final. That's the final.
Well, that's what he says. Yeah,
that's what they're targeting. They have clearance to fly that many, and so you know, you right now they're at like 5,000 to 6,000, something like that. Something crazy. It's still crazy.
5,800.
And you can't shake a fist. You can't shake.
Can't swing a dead cat without hitting the satellite.
What I'm trying to say is like there were models for Stratolites that are much more sustainable that you could field for longer ports of time.
You're talking about within the atmosphere balloons.
Within the atmosphere, right? and there's other options. What W in our Discord chat is saying that it is short-sighted to look at Starlink and other mega constellations as the only solution. He's right.
No,
they're right. They're right. There's lots of other things. But space. I think that space gives us the realm and to discuss those kinds of things. And
but if
we wouldn't be discussing them if we didn't have.
If you put up Stratolites, you know all those drones around New Jersey are going to go up and attack them because they're clearly.
We're not supposed to talk about the
I got a whole lecture yesterday
Rod, we
from
can't
somebody
talk about the drones in New Jersey.
From somebody in their 20s about how those have to be extraterrestrials. And I said, excuse me,
there's no drones in New Jersey.
Why would extraterrestrials put navigation marker lights on their drones? Or if it's for an actor, you know, you put it in stealth mode, but instead you got blinking red and green lights.
No, you hide in plain sight, man. You hide in plain sight. Work for the V aliens forever.
This is really a holiday special because, you know.
Right?
Yeah. Well, but red and green blinking lights. Red and green blinking lights. That's a holiday.
I'm just saying, you know how like it's always like, all right, let's not talk politics at the
I know.
Christmas table.
I'm just saying that Rod is the one stirring up all this.
Drones aren't politics.
I'm just saying.
Aliens. They're aliens,
Mr.
man.
Powell, I'll say this regarding space. My real sort of, I guess, lack of interest and just sort of slight hate or annoyance with it came more so when we started talking about trying to live on Mars, and I'm like, that's so far away distance wise.
Yeah, well, you're talking about Uncle Elon's fever dream, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately,
President
I
Elon.
shouldn't say unfortunately.
Oh my God! Oh, please no.
People listen to that dude.
Yep.
A lot of people listen to that dude, and so what's the trickle down effect of that? And I'm thinking, this
Almost
is
nothing.
not a good idea when we have so many bigger problems in our own damn backyard. So yeah, that's why I have a beef with space.
Well, but take
stuff like that.
So two things. One, Elon ain't
And it's
NASA.
private, I know.
He may soon become part of NASA, but he's not yet.
Yeah.
But two, what he says is what he says. When you look at what NASA's been saying and other organizations that study this stuff, it's like, look, we want to do sorties to Mars. We want to do expeditions. We want to get boots on the ground, explore the planet, see if there's life there and all that. And then the general design is then we'll come home. We may have a small base there someday, probably in the 2050s, blah, blah, blah. Then Elon comes along and says, yeah, I'm going to build a city there in a week. You will notice that the amount of money he's putting into this stuff is slowing down and the amount of government money is cranking up.
Of course.
But that's because of Starlink and Starship and going to the moon and all that.
Yeah.
Government's not really caring about the whole Mars thing. That's his dream. Now, we'll see if that changes under the next administration. But at this point, but you're right. He has a big voice and people pay attention to it. It's like, oh, maybe we should build a city on Mars.
Yeah.
And, if you have this conversation, and again, separate episode, it's a lot harder than he makes it sound. And when I interviewed Gwen Shotwell over there,
I realized that, and I don't know squat about space.
Well, and I asked, the president of SpaceX, I said, so where does your commitment end? And she said, look, we're the railroad. Somebody else has to come build the town. Well, gosh, being a railroad's tough, but building the town is where you have to have enclosures that protect people from radiation. You have to have triple backup for life support systems so people don't suffocate because the air conditioning stops working. You have to figure out how to grow food. You have to figure out how to keep disease from going through there. I mean, that's the hard part. And SpaceX is saying, well, somebody else will do that. We'll just get them there. Yeah. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I think it's still a fever dream. Anthony,
What's up?
why does it matter? Anthony's thinking what matters is finishing this episode.
That's what I'm thinking. It's like almost 4 in the afternoon here now. So
Don't whine. Anthony.
All's well that ends well, my friends. We're so glad you made it to the end. Little Tariq's Christmas is sure to be good. We'll send him a rocket made from rotten wood. So be well and be merry, our beloved listeners, as we spend our holiday beneath hearths that glisteners. We'll see you in the new year with more tales to amaze and clear out your cobwebs from the holiday haze. Happy holidays to all, and to all a good night. And as you leave your media warren, please turn out the light.
I want to thank everybody for joining us for episode 141, the TWiS holiday special. Ant, where's the best place we should go to keep up with your efforts? I assume Patreon, yeah?
Yes, please. And thank you. Go to antpruitt.com/Patreon or patreon.com/Ant Pruitt. I have a community there of folks that I love talking to every day. You can join the Patreon for free, so yeah, check us out. Patreon.com/Ant Pruitt.
But for those of us who aren't Ant, we could say we'd rather you not join it for free. So after you join Club Twit, you should go send money Ant's way so he can keep up the good works that he's doing. Anthony, do you have a web page that we should be looking at?
No, I've
never asked. No, come on, don't lie. Really?
What?
I'm surprised. The man's got a freaking Emmy. He should.
Social media presence?
Patreon's
yes. Well, A Nielsen on X, Ant Nielsen on Blue Sky.
An Emmy?
You got to tell.
Yeah. Oh,
let's hear it.
Preview mode. Yeah, no. I worked at Forbes. I don't know, 12 years ago, and we did like a local. It's a local Emmy. It's not a national.
It's still an Emmy.
Dude,
They're hard to get.
keep trying that shit.
I didn't realize you were working at Forbes and you were 9 years old. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Tariq, where can we follow your misspent time?
Well, you can find me at space.com. As always, this holiday season, watching the Parker Solar Space Probe hopefully not burn up in its close flyby of the sun. That's if you like Fortnite, if you like video games, you can find me on YouTube at Spacetron Plays. It's Winterfest today.
Spacetron Plays
has landed on the Fortnite island, and so it'll be really exciting to see it, because all I want for Christmas is, peace on Earth and all of you, right?
And Fortnite.
And
And of course, for more dignified pursuits, you can find me at pilebooks.com or at astromagazine.com. And remember, you can always drop us a line at TWiS@twit.tv. That's TWIS at twit.tv. We love hearing from you, and we answer all our emails. As you well know, new episodes of this podcast publish every Friday on your favorite podcatcher. This one will be up in a few hours, so make sure to like, subscribe, and give us reviews. Good reviews. You could do whatever you want, but I'm imploring you. Good reviews. Tell the world how great we are so we can keep doing this. Finally, don't forget, we're counting on you to join Club Twit this holiday season. Besides supporting the network, you'll help keep us on the air and bringing you the great guests like all of us today and my horrid jokes. And you can get all the great programming with video streams on the Twit network ad-free on Club Twit, as well as some extras that you can only get there for just $7 a month. And that's nothing. Cost me that much to wake up in the morning. For a limited time, you can refer new subscribers to get free time for your own Club Twit subscription, so that's a nice inducement. And you can follow the Twit Tech Podcast Network at Twit on Twitter and on Facebook at twit.tv on Instagram. Everybody, thank you for not just joining us today, but for staying with us for this very long episode. Everybody, big wave goodbye. Happy holidays. We'll see you soon. Take care.